Hello, everybody, and welcome back once again to Goonies World. As you can tell, I am Meanie, also known as Ryan, and I am joined by Johnny Farrow, also known as Sean.
Hello, I am here, ready to dine in the halls of Valhalla.
And Goonie, also known as Colin.
That's me. Hello.
And we're going back to the Viking Age, I believe.
Yeah, we're playing GURPS Vikings, and I should say for you GURPS nerds, we're playing the 3rd edition revised of GURPS. I don't have anything against 4th edition, I just don't own it. And I have like 8,000 GURPS books of the old school variety, and this is one of them. Also, I play a little fast and loose with the rules. We get most of the important major rules in, but if you're really, really familiar with GURPS, you may occasionally see me, like slipping past something. And that's okay. We have kind of a fast and loose approach on this podcast anyway, and we like to focus on the role-playing. But tonight we'll be role-playing in the world of Midgard, sometime in the Middle Ages. And we're going to begin in the sea, west of Norway. So our heroes, the powerful but fearful Thor Thorson, and the mystical but somewhat delusional Umlaut Topknot, have just fled Norway in a drakkar, or a Viking longship, with Kari, a beautiful girl who's in love with Thor, and all of her brothers who are crewing the Viking ship. Our heroes had run afoul of the jealousy of Thorolf Smooth-Tooth and his brother Yngve Hump, who told lies to King Harald Fairhair about them. And there was a fight, and our heroes were victorious and humiliated the brothers. But the brothers had very powerful kin, and now their uncle, Bolg the Bulge, has burned down Thor's house and demanded this huge payment in compensation for his nephew's humiliation and injuries. So Kari urged Thor to flee to the west to seek new lands. And this coincided with a prophetic dream that Umlaut had about them all finding a new home in a land far, far to the west. And so, chased by Bolg the Bulge and the kin of Smooth-Tooth, our heroes fled with Kari's brothers by night. And as the sun rises, they find themselves in the western seas ready for new adventures. So, will Umlaut's dream come true? And will you find a new home in the west? Will you ever return to Norway and redeem your reputations and regain Thor's lands and revenues? Only time will tell, and the mysterious Norns who guide men's fates speak only through signs and riddles and dreams. So, as the sun rises after the very long night, the drakkar with its dragon-headed prow cuts through the water with Kari's dozen brothers rowing. The cold air is bracing, and it's clear and fine, and the wind is coming from astern, and the waters are choppy, but the sailing is good. And Kari, who's wrapped in a fur, looks over at you, Thor, and says, "Thor, where will we go? Wherever will we go? Do you have any idea where we could go into the west?"
Well, not really, but I'm a Russian now, apparently. Well, no, but I think surely we will find land somewhere out west. Right? There must be something.
There is always somewhere.
Yes, I have heard of the land of Iceland, but I know nothing about it, and it seems quite cold, even colder than where we come from. But, well, tell me, Umlaut, tell me of the dream you had. Tell me of the land you dreamed of. What was it like?
It was very fair land. I cannot remember much. The dream is fading.
Maybe
I don't remember what you said.
Maybe we should call it Fairland. Well, you dreamed of a land of tall, towering pine trees are draped in great big bearded moss, and streams are just full of leaping trout and salmon, and naked, painted men all befriending you, and you can describe all this to
It was Kari. A land of naked men everywhere.
That sounds wonderful, she says. But one of Kari's brothers, Gunnar, he's rowing, but he says, "Thor, when will we find someone to raid? We came to follow you into battle. We seek not only new lands, but booty. When will we get some booty?" I don't know if we want to find the booty from the naked men.
Well, I don't know. I don't have a precise answer, but I am thinking we should have, we should have, it'll be some weeks, I think, at least.
No. And row harder, brothers, row harder. Now, some drakkars are very, very long, with as many as like 30 oars on the side, but this one's relatively modest and small. It's got 8 oars on the side, and it's slightly undermanned, but it is managing to sail through the cold waters without too much trouble. It's actually really easy to maneuver because of its size, so in GURPS terms, it has a maneuverability of +2. You can only carry about a ton of cargo, but right now you're mostly empty. And you realize that it may be some weeks before you can attack someone and raid them and get some booty, which obviously is the Viking way, but long before that, you're eventually going to have to take on supplies, fresh water at the very least. In a pinch, you could fish for food. But, you guys left in a hurry. You have a little bit of water, but that's going to mean trying to make landfall somewhere. And you guys are intelligent enough, and you've heard enough travelers' tales to know that the closest land to the west, the first land you should run into, is the land of the Angles, or more likely the islands that are off the coast of Angle land. And these would be roughly southwest of you. You should be able to find some fresh water there at least and fill up your casks. I mean, you'll be okay for a while, but you're going to have to take on some supplies and probably stop at one of those islands off the coast of Angle land and see what you can find. And again, they would be to the southwest, so if one of you would be so kind to make a navigation roll to try to set the ship on the right heading, the right course, to intercept some of those islands. I believe both of you have the skill. I think Umlaut is slightly more skilled at it than Thor, but if he fails, Thor can always give it a shot. And, of course, the night, the weather was clear. The night, you saw plenty of stars during the night that you can remember. And try to navigate a course to the southwest.
I got right on mine, which is 11.
Okay, great. So you actually, Umlaut, after adjusting the sail and taking a look around and tasting the water and sniffing the air, you feel pretty confident you're on a course for some islands you've heard of called Zetland. And so in GURPS terms, by the way, this ship has like a move score of 9 compared to your character, so you can see that's not that much faster, than a guy walking. So it'll be a while, but the winds are blowing on the quarter of your ship, as they say, and you are steering southwest, so you could take advantage of that wind by making a boating roll to try to ride the winds, as it were. Let the hammer of the gods drive your ship to new lands. And so if you'd like to make a boating roll, either one of you, to try to make that happen. And don't forget, you get a +2 to your boating rolls because of the maneuverability. And all you're really trying to do right now is just ride the wind. Let that square sail you have really fill up, so that in combination with the oars, you can increase the move score of your ship.
Okay, well, I have a 14, so I will attempt. And that's a 10.
Well, that's great. Luckily, you're quite the navigator and boatman, Umlaut. And Thor doesn't need to do anything other than stand there and look heroic on the prow of the ship.
Thor is actually going to get down and help row.
Okay, that's good. But then that obliges Umlaut to do so, too, after a while, because then you got more rowers on one side. You got, like, 7 dudes on one side, 6 on the other. You just be rowing in circles.
Going in circles.
But yeah, everybody should help row, when they're not actively doing something else, except Kari. Kari just, Kari's probably... she actually does have a couple of good skills. I have statted her out. She can man the tiller, just keep it on course at least. And her beautiful blonde hair blows in the wind, and her cloak flows out behind her. And but you feel pretty confident that you can make it there in several days with water to spare, so you shouldn't get stuck and thirsty out on the ocean. as the wind fills your sails and your drakkar cuts through the water. And after a day or two, the weather actually changes and the wind picks up a little bit, and your ship's move score increases to 13. Now, this doesn't really matter that much in a narrative sense. If you're looking at a map, it would make a lot more sense, but you're making much better time than you would have otherwise. But with that picked up wind comes in a cloud cover. It's kind of rolling in behind you from the east, with promising some heavy weather. Brewing heavy weather, as Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull would say. But after a few days, under this leaden gray sky, you do sight land off your starboard bow. And this must be one of the islands of Zetland. There are several Zetland islands. Today we would know them as the Shetland Islands. But as you get closer, you can see that much of that coast is cliffs. And it's going to be very difficult to find a good place to put in to land to go find fresh water and food. Now, there are thousands, by the way, of fat little puffins all over those cliffs. And as you get closer, they're making this huge amount of noise, all these little puffins. They're meeting here for some reason, and they're probably breeding. And the puffins might make good eating if you want to climb up and get some of them or figure out a way to capture them. But islands like this probably have sheep and pigs, and you're not even 100% certain if they're inhabited, but you think there might be. Some of these islands out here are inhabited. These northern ones are inhabited by some savages called the Picts that you hope you don't run into, because you've heard they're fairly savage. But first of all, you got to find a good place to put in to land. And, it's hard to tell whether you should go north around the northern tip of the island, which you're closest to, or whether you should, veer off to the south and try to find another place. The appropriate skill here would be naturalist, to look at the lay of the land, the sloping of the cliff walls, to see maybe which way you should go. And if you fail, you'll just have to guess which way to go. And if you succeed, I can give you a very strong hint. The gods will speak to you.
Well, I've got an 11 in naturalist.
Okay. See how you do.
I don't know what Thor has.
Thor doesn't even have it.
Oh.
Yeah, he doesn't have it. His skills lie elsewhere.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I will go 9. So that makes sense.
Okay. Well, that's great. Actually, one of those puffins takes off, and you can actually see, the god Heimdall blowing on the back of this puffin, and this, carrying it on the breath of Heimdall off to the south, and you realize now. Of course, you're delusional. No one else sees this, but you think you see these signs from the gods. But you feel like south is the way to go, and in fact, Thor, after a while, you see that he's right, because the cliff wall is falling a bit, But you sail south for most of the day, and there's only a few hours of daylight left. Of course, daylight does not last really long at this time of year anyway. But there's a break in the cliffs that you could see, and there's a low, pebbly beach. And beyond that, there's some grasslands and plains that rise up to hills. And also in those hills, there's a pillar of smoke, as if there's a cooking fire or something up there. Now, there's no fresh water source that's obvious here from the beach, so obviously you're going to have to beach the ship and go looking for it. And that's not something that's so routine, it doesn't really require a roll. The real question is, how many of Kari's brothers do you want to take with you out into Zetland looking for fresh water? You got about a dozen of these guys. They can carry casks, to put the water in. It's heavy. And
do we want to maybe take half?
Yes, that is about what I was thinking about. We take half, and leave the rest back to guard the boat and Kari.
Okay. All right. Well, in
Unless
some ways,
she's got skills that would be useful.
Well, she doesn't really have particular combat skills, although you've seen before. She's actually she's got a good reputation, or she did back in Trondheim. She has a good reputation as a healer, so that could come in handy, possibly. But in some ways, she's your greatest treasure, because if you're going to go start a new colony, she's the only real way that you can outgrow your population. You know,
I hope. Well, yeah, that's going to be a heavy burden for her.
Heavy burden on Thor. You have to really do some.
On him too.
Well, and then like all of our children are going to have to like marry her brothers and shit or something. I mean,
Right,
it's just going
right.
to be some fucked up monarchy.
Well, one stage of
breeding
separation. One stage is over the course of a few generations. It should all even itself out. You know, should all breed true after a few generations of
It'll work
awkwardness.
itself out.
Yeah, it'll work itself out. But yeah, you move into the grasslands and you can actually see some little white dots on the hills in the distance of sheep. And I assume you'll move towards them, you know, but you don't see like shepherds or anything. But
Yeah,
go
that's
ahead.
what I was going to look for. Make sure there's not anybody watching that flock.
Well, why don't you make a vision roll, which is an IQ roll?
Okay.
And of course, you can do this too, Thor. Don't forget, I think both of you guys have the luck advantage, don't you? So, like, once per hour of gameplay,
yeah.
you can roll up to 3 times.
Well, I actually didn't make it.
Oh, okay. Maybe Thor's
Don't see anything.
got better sight than you.
Oh, that is not likely, but I can give it a roll and see what happens.
Yeah, he's not the world.
Not even no.
Okay, yeah. Thor is, you know, he's good looking and he's big, but he's a little dim, you know. And anyway, you don't really see any shepherds, so these are probably or could be wild sheep just roaming around the hills. Would you like to move towards them? And you still don't see a water source anywhere either. But there must be, if there's sheep, they've got to be drinking some kind of water.
Yeah, there must be some sort of stream or lake or something. But the sheep look fat, tasty.
Yeah, they do.
I think we
Yes, I
should.
think we should move in and get them. And if there's no stream, we can drink the blood of the sheep.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
not a terrible idea.
or urine, although
not
won't be quite the same as reindeer.
No, and if just in case this is the first GURPS Viking episode you've listened to, Umlaut, one of his quirks is that he enjoys the taste of reindeer piss, and so this is something
not
you need
weird.
to remember. It's not weird at all. No, it's
normal.
perfectly natural. Perfectly natural. Well, you guys go up to try to corral and capture some of these sheep, and you get up and walk around the hill. And there's a larger hill behind that you didn't catch earlier. You know, you knew there was some smokes. You knew there had to have been a settlement somewhere. But now it's like a little closer than you thought. Like within maybe about half a mile, you know, which doesn't seem that far away when it's, you know, just out on grasslands and plains. Another hill was in the way. You know, you didn't quite get a great line of sight to it. But you misjudged how far away that smoke was. And there's on top of this hill there's like a round turf wall that's surrounding like a stone and earth building. It's also round in shape. You can see at entrance there's actually some people running back into the entrance. They're like trying to get the sheep back into the entrance of this thing. There's this huge pile of skulls right outside the entrance of the this hill fort, or dun, as you might call it. And there's some shouting, and soon about 8, a little more than half a dozen men come running out of the hill fort. Now they're still like within charging distance from you. They're still quite some distance away, but it's enough that you can see that they've got broad bladed spears, and they're carrying some like light throwing javelins. They don't seem to have any bows or anything. Most of your guys are equipped with bows, not all of you, but most of them. And they have grease in their hair, you know, it's making it stand straight up and flaying out in all directions. And they're wearing like woolen trousers, but they're otherwise naked. And they're just covered with tattoos, mostly spirals and swirling designs. And they're screaming once they see you, but they're not charging forward. They're actually screaming and waving their weapons around and making these like high steps like peacocks and strutting, and they're doing like these wrestler moves and showing you their muscles and how strong they are. They seem to be trying to intimidate you guys. Now you could try to go parlay with them or speak to them, or you could fight them. They seem like they would very much like to fight, but they seem like they'd prefer to scare you away than actually engage in battle.
These people cannot be parlayed with. I don't think they're but mere animals. We will not be having a reasonable conversation. I know you like to avoid combat, Thor, but these are truly savages.
No, I don't think so. Just let me handle this. I think it will be fine.
Sigerson, who's one of Kari's brothers, he's here with Gunnar. He says, "What? I've never heard it said that Thor would ever avoid combat. You do not fear combat, do you, Thor?"
Well, no, it's just that I tend to think that that there's usually a better way than fighting. I mean, fighting is so savage and violent and things. And I mean, if it comes down to it, it becomes necessary, then yes, of course. But, can't we just talk things out?
I'm not at all sure about that, no.
He likes to avoid combat because when he gets engaged in it, there is so much bloodshed. He, just goes on a frenzy.
Oh, yes, I see.
It's a bloodbath.
Well, you saw the other night when
yes,
it's the king's thing. I was going to attack and kill the humpy guy.
Well, you were, and you
Bolg.
threw, and then you attacked Bolg, which wasn't even part of the laws of the Holmgang or the judicial fight. And of course, we had to restrain you, and we all saw you throw Smooth-Tooth into the fire. Don't be afraid to unleash that beast that's inside you. The god Thor, your namesake, put that there for you. And so, meanwhile, the Picts on top of the hill are jumping up and down and grimacing and strutting around and still trying to intimidate and scare you away, but you guys aren't running. You can hear them yelling stuff at you, too. You're not even sure you could talk to them. You're on the wind, you're like, Chaktatala, Bisiper do Nordu, Tolfigne, Inestri Narcisir, and screaming and waving there. You're not even sure that you can speak their language, frankly.
Well, Thor is obviously afraid of fighting.
Right, yes.
And also, he's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just gonna hold up his hand to Umlaut and his friends and be like, I will handle this. And then he's going to hold up his hand like waving to these Picts, and he's going to smile and begin approaching them, saying, "Hello, hello."
Okay.
I think that is wise.
One of them, you see, like maybe the leader, he actually stops and cocks his head to one side, like quizzically, like he just can't even imagine what you must be doing. Umlaut, is there anything? In fact, Gunnar and Sigerson come to you. What is he doing? Is he going to fight them all single-handed?
No, not unless he has to. I think he thinks that he will be able to reason with them. He is very confident.
That is not the Viking way.
No, he's an odd fellow.
I think he is more of a singular combatant. If this comes to battle, you must lead us, Umlaut.
Yes, I think we should have our bows ready.
Well, I'm gonna leave you to think up some kind of a battle plan here. You can think of these guys at the top of the hill, and you're at the bottom of a hill, but it's not like terrible slope. There's not like a lot of defensive cover around or anything like that. Meanwhile, Thor, you're walking up the hill with your Hello. You're waving, and of course, I assume you still got your sword and everything, but it's not drawn.
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, the guy who looked like the leader, he's got black hair. A lot of these guys, they're actually kind of dark complected. They don't look Celtic per se, you know. They're, but he's got this black hair that's like just flaying out all over his head, all stiffened with pig's grease, and he comes strutting down the hill. But his weapons are out, and when he gets within about shouting distance of, he's like, "Tolfin me in his trinar Caesar, attack the Dala."
I did not attack your sister. No, I just want to negotiate with you for some sheeps.
No, Ines Sieber. You want to try to like mimic sheep? How do you?
Yeah. So he's Thor's. This is so stupid. Thor's gonna get down on his hands and knees and crawl on the ground and go bah. Yeah, exactly.
The guy, he just makes like he's astounded. He turns around and he looks back at the rest of the Pictish warriors and he shrugs. And he points to his head. He points to his forehead as if to indicate that you were, touched. Or he shakes his head. And one of them hollers down, "Talk to Dala, talk to Dala." And he says, "Aye, talk to Dala." And then he picks up his big spear and just hurls it at you, Thor. And, but oh my God, that's actually a miss. It's not quite a critical miss, but it goes pretty wide. He grimaces in shame. But then it seems like it's on. You can feel all the guys around you, Umlaut, are tensing up. His men the Pictish men all scream and raise their spears aloft into the air and come charging down the hill. And so, Umlaut, have you thought of any kind of plan other than just smash into them, or you could think of some clever stratagem? It could give you a little bit of a bonus, but I am putting you on the spot with that.
Well, as soon as he throws that spear or javelin, I wanted to shout, "Fire!" To the brothers, shoot their arrows at the Picts, and as soon as they do that, I wanted to kind of dramatically hop onto my shield and slide down the hill.
Well, you're
on it.
Yeah, but in case I didn't make clear, they're higher up on the hill than you, so you would be sliding away in the opposite direction, unless that's what you meant to do.
No,
no. Okay,
I'm gonna slide. I'm gonna get on the boat and I'm gonna row home.
Well, that's a super great idea. I wish you were at the top of the hill. Now I wish that's so cool that I put you guys on top of the hill instead. But we'll have to remember that for the future.
Yeah, I misunderstood. I thought that we were looking down on this scene.
Okay.
Actually, I thought that too at first, so yeah.
Okay, well, maybe when I edit this, I'll go back and find that I said that, but
I don't know.
No, I'm picturing them. They're on a hill, they're above you. Their fort's on top of the hill, and they've come out of it, right?
Yeah, you probably did say that.
I still think it's funny he goes going away in the opposite direction on this shield. But look, guys, we don't have quite enough combatants to fully justify the GURPS mass combat system, but we also don't have time to fight this out, man to man with all of these combatants here, right? So we're going to go ahead and use the GURPS mass combat system anyway. And in terms of a plan, I guess your plan seems to have been at least to let loose with your ranged weapons from afar before charging. I think that's at least good for a +1 in the final battle. Now, you GURPS nerds at home will know that most of this is just factoring in a bunch of stuff and then boiling it all down to 1 or 2 rolls. So without getting too deep in the weeds on it, you guys, you Vikings, you're all wearing what we would call medium armor, which gives you a troop strength of 3. And because you do have some bows among you, we add 2, which gives you a troop strength of 5. And your tattooed Pictish opponents, they have no armor at all. So they have a troop strength of 1, but they do have those little light javelins, which gives them another +1, so they have a troop strength of 2. Now, both of you guys, obviously they do, and you guys do have some experience in combat, so we could consider your troop quality to be seasoned. And you guys have a morale of 14, in case that matters. Both sides do. So I need to roll to see if there's any kind of catastrophic event, though, that might, like a rock fall or some freak occurrence, that could affect this battle, which would be really fun if it did, but it doesn't, because I only rolled a 5. And so there's no catastrophe. Now, I won't ask you to do this on the fly. I've done it for you. But what we need to do for both of you guys is to see how well you personally do in the battle, whether you get hurt or not. So we want to average your IQ -6 and your main weapon skill. You don't have to do that. I already did it. For Umlaut, that's a 9. And for Thor, I believe it's 7.5, which I'm just going to be generous and round that up to 8. And so, as the arrows are loose and they hurl some javelins, and you guys run screaming into each other. Is there anything in terms of strategy that you might choose to do at this time, Thor, before the two sides smash into each other cinematically on the hillside?
Well, I mean, as soon as he, winged his javelin at me, Thor was gonna jump up and draw his sword and just rush into melee, like, because that pissed him off. He's got a horrible temper, so
he does have a bad temper, real bad.
He's like, from his perspective, he's just trying to do the right thing and negotiate and be a nice guy, and whatever these assholes are just pissing him off. So he's gonna kill them all.
He's the nicest Viking there is until he gets mad, and then then people get thrown into bonfires and. So yeah, the 2-4. Both you guys, I need you. This number I gave you is like your effective battle skill for this battle. So as the two forces smash into each other, both of you roll against that effective battle skill. That's a 9 for you, Umlaut, and an 8 for you, Thor.
Well, I got a 5.
Okay, that's actually great.
Yeah.
And so, not only did you succeed, you actually succeeded. You in this, as the forces clash, and over the course of this battle, you only take 1 point of damage, Umlaut. You just whirl through the battle. You only take, very, very minor damage. We'll have to just imagine this. It's very narrative, this mass battle system. You guys are just smashing in together. Now, you're doing plenty of damage. Let's assume that you're doing plenty. But you just take the 1 point. And you also do plenty of damage to them. I'm going to go ahead and roll it out. I'm not going to assign it individually, but altogether you do like 8 points worth of damage to various people in this, first exchange. And there's also some risk and glory and some other things we're ignoring right now, just because it's not like a huge battle. It's more of a skirmish. So listeners who know this system will know we're skipping some parts of it, but we're certainly hitting the high points. Thor, how did your battle roll go?
Well, Thor did not roll particularly well. Thor is going to invoke his luck and attempt to roll again and see if he gets any better. And he does, get better, but he only gets an 8. Okay.
So you made it.
That wasn't the 10 that he. Yeah, but he rolled 10 before, so I'll take this one.
Well, that's good, because you could have made that could have resulted in you taking some serious damage, but because you made it right on, you only take 2 points of damage, 2 hits. And then of course you are able to do, and this is random, so it actually turned out to be luckily a little higher. You actually do 9 points of damage in the assault. And however, this is only just part of the battle. All the other people, all your other men are fighting too. All of her, Gunnar and Sigurdsson and Kari's brothers. And I'm going to make a few rolls here for my Pictish friends and make note of them. Hello, friends. This is Sean with a quick edit. Somehow during the next several minutes, I flip-flop high and low in my mind. In GURPS, high is bad, low is good. But despite playing GURPS off and on since like 1987, I made low bad and high good. And I catch my mistake later and we have a laugh about it, but we wanted to make a note of it here so it didn't throw you off while listening, if you know GURPS. My only excuse is that I was powering through a brutal headache during this, but it's also true that I am not particularly gifted. All right, back to the action. So what this all boils down to now is a quick contest of strategy. And really the best person to make this roll would be like the effective leader of the force, not even the nominal leader of the force, but it should be the person with the highest intelligence, which means not Thor. Because strategy as a skill defaults to your IQ -6. Okay? So I believe that is a 4 in Umlaut's case, your IQ -6. However, you get a +2 for being a higher tech level than them. You're just a more advanced culture than they are, which brings it to 6. And you get a +4 for the ratio of your troop strength. You know, you guys are just better equipped and better armored and everything else. And then, so that would bring it up to a total of 10. And then I think a +1 for Thor's incredible rage and a +1 for your battle plan of loosing the arrows first would bring us up to a total strategy, effective strategy skill for you of 12, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, our leader of the picks, he has an 8, is less than you. So we're going to both roll and see who rolls better.
All right, so as soon as that first volley of arrows, I pictured Umlaut starting to run up that hill. Mm-hmm. Running up that hill. Stranger Things. And I'm going to roll, I guess. Just charge in.
Yeah, make your roll. I'm telling you, I rolled like really bad. I rolled 1 better than a critical failure for them.
Well, I got a 10.
Okay. So the difference in those rolls was actually like a 6. And so you have actually won a marginal victory. Both of you guys hold position at the moment, but they're going to have to roll their morale, though, because they've been a little bit shaken by the ferocity of your attack. You haven't, like, charged right through them or scattered them, but it might, and they're going to make their morale roll, and they're going to hold, but we basically do this again. So go ahead as they charge back, or as they, get their courage back up. And now we've already had that big cinematic charge. Now it's, where the camera is really tight in on the fight, and you guys are all engaged in one-on-one combat. You see Sigurdsson and Gunnar and the rest of Kari's brothers fighting with these picks. You see 1 or 2 picks go down in that last one, and unfortunately in that last exchange, you saw Sigurdsson go down in a welter of blood. And Umlaut, you actually can see the Valkyries, the heavens open up, and the Valkyries come down, and they carry Sigurdsson's spirit away. His brothers are all screaming with rage. So both of you go ahead and make your battle rolls again.
Ooh.
Thor got a 7 that time.
Failed this time, and I rolled a 15, but I think I should try some luck.
I think you should definitely try some luck, because that's going to... But you actually made yours by 1, isn't that correct?
Yes.
So you only take 1 more hit of damage in this second exchange. And you will actually do... Oh my god. That's like the neighbor of the beast. That's 665. So you do actually like 17 points of damage out to them, which in GURPS terms is fairly huge, especially to guys who have no effective DR, right? So Thor, you're just like wading through. You're just cutting them up, and you don't take that much damage yourself. Meanwhile, how did your reroll go there, Umlaut?
This time I got an 11.
Okay. So you just missed it by 1, is that right? No, 2?
Well, were we not doing our, like, the 12 thing anymore?
No, that's a strategy roll. This is your battle roll, which is a 9. So you've only missed it by 2. But, so now you can roll up to 3 times with your luck. So you could roll one more time if you want. Otherwise, I'm going to roll on damage table A to see how much damage you take. And it's going to be more than 1 or 2. So if you would like to trust to fate, maybe the gods will look kindly upon you. You going to trust to fate?
Trust to fate.
Well, actually, that's minus your DR. So it's going to be 7 points of damage, but you can subtract your DR, which I think is pretty good. Your damage resistance.
3.
So, okay. And all this sounds pretty mathy as we discuss it, but, we have to imagine in our heads the swirling combat raging all around us. And now, they both... Wait a minute, let me... Okay. They've not done enough damage to put anybody down. And now let's go ahead and make that strategy roll again for them. He doesn't do much better this time. The leader of the picks has a 6 on that. This is just not his night. Need to use some different dice for him. So this is that one that altogether is the 12. Okay. In fact, I'm going to give you a +1 simply because you're all these guys are related, right? And they're all enraged that Sigerson has been killed. So that for their rage gives you a further +1 on this roll. So make your strategy test, and it's a quick contest of strategy, and your opponent has only gotten a 6.
10.
Did you say 10?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. And so you won by 4, and again, they're at a -2 to their morale now. And oh boy. Now, that is a critical failure. That is a critical failure. They didn't even have... This could have gone on a little longer. I don't know what it was that tipped the balance, other than the fact that I've just literally rolled a 3. And so, they are the worst picks in the history of pickdom. And they are utterly routed. They don't just retreat in good order. I mean, they drop their spears and run. They run back into their dun or hill fort and gather up all their people, and they all flee the hill fort. They're running out the back. Unless you guys, and if you want to chase them and hack some of them down, you're perfectly able to do that. But for the most part, they're women and children, and there are people who are running out of the hill fort. It's not huge. It's maybe a couple dozen people who live here, but you chase them in, and they're all running out their back entrance into the hills, fleeing for their lives. And you have here before you this hill fort that's completely at your disposal. And you can see there actually is a spring of water up here. They built it around the spring of water. It's running in a stream out of the back entrance. There's big piles of skulls outside of this big round house that's inside the hill fort that everybody seems to live in. But there's a dozen sheep up here and 8 pigs. And the pigs probably make your mouth water. That's much better eating than pigs. They've also got some sacks of grain and just a ton of booty. But if you want to search around for any kind of traditional treasure, you can certainly do that.
I don't think these Greaseheads have anything that we would value, but I will make a look around.
We do have a pot of pig grease for, hair care products. Pomade. I think it's a pig grease pomade that they use. Their hair is obviously very, very important to them. But
that is why they lost in battle. They were too focused on their hair products.
Yeah, you could
training.
You could very well be right. But yeah, you can search around and just basically take the time. There's not a lot of rolling involved in this because you're just taking the time to look. But the only thing you do find, and luckily for you, there's 2 of them. But in that largest house, under a flat rock, you find 2 golden torques. They're solid gold. A torque's like a big, thick, it's not quite a necklace, it's like a big, thick ring that goes around one's neck. It's kind of like a necklace, but it's not chains. It's like a great big thick ring, and you put around your neck if you wanted to. But that's what you find in terms of actual treasure. And this, of course, can be melted down or whatever to split amongst your men. But the real treasure here is as much water as you can carry, and the dozen sheep and the 8 pigs, which can all be taken and herded, onto your boat. The problem is somebody's going to have to make an animal handling roll. And I don't know if either of you have that skill. And
I do not.
Yeah, I didn't think so. And animal handling is, it's no completely easy thing, but it defaults to, again, your IQ -6, which is terrible. But you go ahead and make the roll. I'll make a roll for the brothers too, but that is not going to work. So you never know. You could get that critical success.
No.
No. Okay.
Well, given that Thor would need to roll a 2 on 3 dice.
2 and 3 dice. Yeah. Yeah. Except a 3 would still be a critical success, however. So it's always possible. I just rolled a 3 for those bad guys. You know what? I'm not going to go back and redo it, but our listeners will be sure to realize I actually called something a critical success when it was a critical failure. Those guys should have done a little bit better in the battle, so I apologize to the picks. I'm not going to go back and undo it now. But I just flip-flopped, in my head. With seeing low numbers is good and high numbers is bad. But who are we kidding? They're probably fated to lose, right? But if the Norns have fated that they should have lost that battle. So, anyway, you guys try to get the animals back, but you don't get all of them back. I mean, a lot of them go. There's some comical scenes as you guys try to chase, a few of the pigs, but in the end, you get 2 of the pigs back and about half the sheep, or 6 of them, and you've finally returned to the beach, and now you don't know. Also, you don't know if these picks, if that was the only. In fact, I'm going to make their critical success mean something that I didn't give them, and I've just decided what that is. But you guys are there on the beach, and Sigerson, of course, is dead, and his brothers would have carried him back. And you can't just leave him here. Something's going to have to be done. And I think
we will give him a funeral.
Yeah, I was going to. Yeah. So, who amongst you thinks that you know the best way to do a Viking funeral on a budget in a hurry?
We have to build a raft, or some type of floating platform that we can send him off. And we will have to find a way to light our arrows on fire and start this funeral pyre on the boat that we put him on.
That is true.
Well, I don't know how to make a raft. I'm sorry.
That is one way to do it, and it's a time-consuming way, and it'll be very appropriate. There's another way that is acceptable, which is to bury him, and then with all his stuff and a share of the booty, and then put a great big rock, like the biggest rock or stone that you can find, to drag it over and set it up over his grave. So either one of those things would be pretty time-consuming. So it's really just a matter of flavor. What do you think, Umlaut? Since you're the most religiously minded one here, what do you think would please the gods better?
Well, the full Viking funeral would please the gods more, but I believe that the gods would understand if we gave him a simple burial. And I will dig the hole myself with help if they want.
They insist on helping. And of course, Kari is doing all the...
Want to carve a rune into the rock that we will place on the grave. On the grave.
Okay. Well, there's a great big rock up top of the hill. It's not like a full-on standing stone, but it's like a huge boulder. Thor, you're probably the strongest person. Would you please make a strength test to roll or carry or heft this great big rock to put over the grave of the guy who would have been your future brother-in-law?
Well, I got a 12.
Oh, yeah. So you're able to move it down there, and of course all this takes, with the digging of the grave, even with everyone involved, and the moving of the heavy rock, this is a matter of some hours, really. Kari is doing all the appropriate wailing, and keening, and crying, and singing, and you guys all say your chants and say your words as you commend his spirit to the halls of Valhalla. I'm sure Umlaut assures everyone that, he saw the Valkyries coming.
See him. Safe travels, my friend. See you at that great banquet hall.
Yes, you can only hope that you will be reunited in Valhalla. And by then, you've gotten the water on the boat, and enough of the animals to feed you for a while. I mean, a lot of them got away. But just as you're finishing up and getting ready to get back on the boat, you hear this terrible cry and roar of a great crowd from up ahead. And coming around the hilltop, maybe about a half mile or so from you, is a group of several dozen Picts. And they're led by this guy wearing white robes. He's got like a weird haircut that's almost like a mohawk, with spiky. And he's wearing a white robe and carrying this huge sickle and a staff. And they're all screaming at you and running down the hill. And they're going to slaughter you unless you can't get the hell out of there on the boat, which I would highly recommend that you do. This, I'm going to say, their critical success that I denied them earlier is they got to a neighboring hill fort and got a druid and got pretty serious and came after you. And there's no way to fight all of them, so you'll have to leave in humiliation as you're chased off of this island of Zetland. So, unless anyone wants to take a shortcut to Valhalla, now would be the time. Charge up the hill. But I'll assume you guys get away, and they're not boatmen, they're not gifted boatmen, the Picts, but they stand along the shore and hurl insults in their language at you. You don't know what they're saying. It's more Inistrinar Cisayan Sidubal Norto Talfilme and
fuck you, dick pics. That's what I think.
Nice. Well, you guys, after first conquering and then fleeing from the dick pics, and their critical success that I denied them, it wouldn't have necessarily won them the battle. It just would have prolonged that battle a little longer, right? When they were first routed, that's where I made my mistake, but that's okay. Anyway, you guys get back out onto the choppy waters after having an appropriate Viking funeral for your fallen comrade Sigurdsson. And Kari, meanwhile, after you guys are on the boat, she makes some first aid rolls. And Thor, you actually restored of 1d minus 3 hits, if you want to go ahead and roll that. And that's such a great success, not critical, but you also are restored of 1d minus 3 hits. So you can just roll a dice and then subtract 3, and it'll be like 1 or 2, which is probably about what you lost if you're lucky. You get a minimum of 1 back, though.
So I muscle healed, or?
Yeah, she healed you too, Umlaut. And
it's
so
1d minus 3.
Minus 3. Yeah, it took her about an hour. It took her about a half an hour. At this tech level, it took her a half an hour each attempt. But anyway, you've gotten away and sailed off, and you can continue your journey to the west. If you want to get west, obviously, you want to go back north. But, night is getting to the point where it's going to be falling soon, the long night. And obviously, this island of Zetland is not the place that the Norns have decreed as your fated destination. So, sailing back into the north and rounding the north of the island of Zetland, the weather that looked like it might be getting heavy, it finally breaks. And Umlaut, you look up into the clouds, and you can see Thor up there in the clouds, and he strikes with his hammer, and there's a flash of lightning, and thunder just rolls across the sea, And then, of course, nobody else sees this because you're delusional. But, and you know, the thunder echoes off the cliffs of Zetland's north shore, and the steady rain starts pelting down. But the wind is from the east, and you could potentially make up for a lot of lost time if you make another successful boating roll. Harnessing the wind and the sail, and again, letting the hammer of the gods drive your ship to new lands. So why don't you make that boating roll? You can do it at +2. I believe you both have boating if one of them
Yeah, I think
doesn't work.
Umlaut is one better, I think.
One better.
Well,
one better, isn't it?
Did succeed.
Okay, well, and the
Thank you, Thor.
You're welcome.
God,
Thor said.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
He is very appreciative.
Yeah. Thor gives you a wink, and he smiles, and there's a little ding on his teeth that you see up in the clouds. But and of course, it's totally Chris Hemsworth, you know, obviously.
Yeah.
But anyway, the storm continues all through the night, but it's a clean storm, you know, with that driving wind, and you sail through the rest of the night, which is a long night, and you make very good time, and you rest fitfully in shifts, you know, when you can. And as the day breaks, you can actually see more islands. This time they're due west of you, but they're not large, and they're very rocky. So why don't you make a navigation roll to just guess what they are or what they could be based on travelers' tales you've heard and others.
I got on it again, 11.
Well, you think, you're not 100% certain, but these could be islands you've heard of called the Foroyar Islands, or what we would call the Faroe Islands. And they're rocky outcrops, and there's no trees here. But as you sail close, you can actually see the wreckage of a ship that's on the rocks. There's part of a sail stuck on the rocks and is trailing out into the water. And there's a man that you can see. He's actually jumping up and down on the rocks, and he's waving his hands. You can see that from a distance. You want to get in closer?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's get
it's a little
closer.
bit risky because you could yourselves smash on the rocks, but
Could be Odin again.
maybe. Well, as you get close, you can see that he wears a simple brown robe and sandals. He's got this little bald spot that's like shaven into the top of his head. He wears this huge wooden necklace that bobs, you know, as he jumps up and down and waves his hands. Hanging from this necklace is this large symbol. It looks almost like the rune Algiz, which is the rune of protection, but instead of the cross arms being slanted, they're flat, so it kind of resembles what to our modern eyes would look like a lowercase t. And he's jumping up and down and screaming to you, and he's speaking your language, though, although heavily accented. He's like, help! Help! And he actually leaps into the sea as you get closer and starts swimming towards you. And Umlaut, you think you see this man with golden wings when he leaps into the sea, like lifting up this brown-robed guy and throwing him into the water so he could jump really far. And he's flying above him and reaching down to help keep his head above water, but that's no god, you know. So he gets pretty close. Do you guys want to pull him onto your boat? Or
Yeah, I don't want to just let him drown.
oh, that's nice of you. Well, he comes up out of the water. He's spluttering, and he's like, thank you, mighty Northman. I prayed to Christ Jesus and the Blessed Virgin that I be rescued, and here you are. And he tries to give you, Thor, a big hug and kiss. Do you want to let him? He tries to kiss you on the cheeks and hug you.
Yeah, but with a bit of a squeamish look.
And then he gives you a big hug, too, Umlaut, and try to kiss you on both cheeks. Do you let him?
Yes, and I kiss him.
Okay.
Too.
He goes, oh, brother, I will accept your kiss.
I make it kind of awkward, actually.
Yeah, one of those, like, you go in, but there's not quite,
Well, I kiss him a little bit more than...
Too long? Okay.
Yeah, like, too many pecks. Like, I keep going back to the cheeks, you know, and I don't know when to stop.
That is enough pecks. That is enough kiss. Brothers, I am so thankful. I knew that the Lord would save me. I am Brother Brendan. of Glendalough. And he waves his hand in this little pattern over you guys. He's actually like making the sign of the cross, but you guys don't know what the hell he's doing. He's casting a spell on us, says Gunnar.
There is no insects to swat off. I don't know what you're doing.
Well, no, may the Lord bless you and keep you and deliver you from evil, my brothers. He's guided your hand to save me from the sea so that I can save you from the fires of damnation. Praise be to God, brothers! And that's where we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode for tonight. And,
oh, great. A proselytizer.
Yeah. Well, the servants of what they called the White God are starting to come into the area, and so you've just met one.
Well, I can proselytize right back to him.
Yeah, just proselytize right back. So we've gone through another one, and believe it or not, it might be very believable. That was my first time ever trying to do the GURPS mass combat system. They have another thing where during that battle roll you could have taken on more risk, but you guys had enough penalty. You did not have really high skill as it is. But there's a thing called risk and glory to where if you were to, take some penalty on those rolls, you could cover yourselves in glory and gain some reputation and things like that. This system is really designed, though, for much larger battles, not like 6 or 8 guys on each side, but I've always wanted to try it, and now I've done it. So, anyway, I want to thank Pound Sound UK and Svengvari for the music that we used tonight. Obviously, our adventure is going to go beyond 3 episodes, so we will see you next time and see if we can't make it to those fabled lands that Umlaut dreamed of somewhere in the West, and see if maybe you guys don't become Christians while you're at it.
Never! Hey everybody, if you like our podcast, don't forget to leave us a good rating and or review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Spotify, or wherever you're able. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at Goonies_world, and check out our website at GooniesWorldPodcast.com. Email us at GooniesWorldPodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.